Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. There are 54 days until November 7th. This week on Progress Kentucky, we'll be covering a couple of big money political stories. One about the election, one about the roads, bridges, and broadband across our Commonwealth. We're going to return to a story we've covered a couple of times. Glitch, Mitch, and now Rand Paul is weighing in. Excuse me, Dr. Rand Paul. Then we are super excited to chat with Mason Kalinsky, the organizing director for Hood to the Holler. We're going to meet them over in the campaign corner to hear what Hood to the Holler has been up to, why they're prioritizing sending Andy Beshear back to the governor's mansion on November 7th. But before we get into it, are you ready to turn Kentucky purple? Are you going to help? You going to make this happen? I hope you are. I mean, you're watching a political show on the internet or listening to it on your podcast platform right now. So there must be a reason you're interested in politics, and you must be hoping they get better, right? The political ads right now are trying to convince you that Andy Beshear is soft on crime, that he's against churches, and he's single-handedly forcing your child to be transgender. The wave of negative attack ads are designed to keep people tuned out and disgusted with our political system. These are not efforts to inform and inspire deeper interest and engagement with our Commonwealth political system. We are not going to fix what's wrong with Kentucky with these ads or with this approach to elections. That's why Progress Kentucky is excited to be a part of the Kentucky Future Project to build the political coalition of new voters, progressive voters, non-white voters who can come together to make our Commonwealth better. We're working with great groups like Planned Parenthood. We're working with the Fairness Campaign, Showing Up for Racial Justice, Hood to the Holler, spoiler, and many others to turn out the new Kentucky majority and achieve better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. If you want to support our efforts on this campaign, please make a donation at our secure ActBlue site. $5, $50, $500. It all adds up and will give us the materials, the resources we need to make a positive difference on November 7th, which is just 54 days. Did I mention that? 54 days away? That's not very much time, people. All right, so let's check in with our co-host. Let us know who you are, where you are, and what does your protest sign say today? You there watching on the internet? We mean you too. We want to know what your sign says. Put it in the chat while we are sharing ours. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky. My sign says, politics shouldn't run on big checks. All right, let's check in with Kimberly. Kimberly, you there, sister?
Yes. I'm here. Hi, everybody. Good to see you. I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, in Jefferson County, the largest county in the Commonwealth. My protest sign says today, and I would really want it to be extremely big, okay? Extremely big. And I would want it to say, Daniel Cameron, you are Black.
Okay.
Since he's talking about he's tired of so much Black privilege, I think forgot who he is.
Black privilege. That's a thing that Dan Cameron is railing against now. I am missing stories. Here I am trying to do a political podcast for Kentucky, and I don't even know that story. I'm going to need to do a little research on that one. Dan Cameron, he doesn't see color, Kimberly. He is he's beyond color. My word. All right. Next up, Chris. Chris, you there?
I'm coming to you from the lovely Appalachian town of Berea, Kentucky. And my protest sign says, my body, my choice, because Mitch McConnell, it's his body. He can freeze and he can still be a leader in the Senate.
Can he? I feel like, the knives are coming out for that guy. But Thune's got his back, because Thune's always got his back. So we're there for all those press conferences. John Thune, senator from some state somewhere in the middle. His lieutenant, whoa. So sorry about that. My house is burning down. I think I think we're going to need to go to a story, and I shouldn't be mine. So, Kimberly, can you go first?
I sure can. I was trying to look up that article for you. So, first up, right here, we're going to be talking about big money for the governor's race. And The boys are back in town. You all remember that song, but actually, it's the Packs are back in town. And let me tell you a little bit about the big money and what's going on. Andy is way up in the fundraising fight. Thank God for that. The Beshear campaign dwarfs Cameron's in total cash that has been brought in and on hand. The 60-day pre-general election reports show the governor has brought in roughly 15 million into his general election campaign. How about that? Since the primary that ended in mid-May, compared to Cameron's 2.8 million. Oh, I guess we just really feel sad for Cameron, right? The Beshear campaign has spent about 10.8 million of its 15 million general election total already. So campaign officials have told the Herald Leader that they currently have $4.2 million in cash on hand, a figure that takes into account the campaign having already spent $2 million on television ad placement for the month of October. The Beshear campaign got donations from 1,345 people who gave 2,100 or 2,000. About 93% of Beshear's more than 8,700 donations came from Kentuckians. Another 3 million came from the Kentucky Democratic Party, with whom the Beshear campaign is running a coordinated campaign. The remaining 6 million was raised directly by the general election campaign. And I also saw that Cameron is touting 4,000. Just want to let you guys know, yes, $100 a month for Andy. Been doing it for a while. So looks to me like he's sitting in a good place. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, it's nice to see that he's up in the fundraising race. It's obviously money isn't the only thing that wins elections. It is a critical component of running a successful campaign, though, right? It's like there's a certain amount that's, I think, diminishing returns, right? You can only buy so many ads or run so many online, digital, whatevers. But you can hire a almost unlimited number of field organizers who want to knock on a lot of doors, right? And so that's when in a race that is anticipated to be as close as this, just like structurally, right? It's really important that Andy has the money to do the organizing, to hire the field organizers to knock on the doors, because that's, I think, where the small but important gains can really be made. These ads, like we talked about at the top of the show, the ads aren't turning anyone out. The ads are like depressing turnout, right? The other side's turnout, right? So, but really good that good that he's up. It's gross that it costs this much money and that they have to fundraise for so long. But I don't know, Chris, you have like an intimate firsthand experience of political fundraising. What's your take on it?
Yes, I do. That is an intense amount of money. He should be able to hire one person from every holler in Eastern Kentucky to go up and down it and knock on doors with that amount of money. Like there should be tons of people just knocking on doors for him all across the state, and really, I think getting people face to face and hiring people, from the area, not just getting out of state folks. Which there's a lot of out of state folks that come into these campaigns and want to help, and that's great. I'm glad that they want to come in and help. And the best place for them to come in and help will probably be in the bigger cities. But when it comes to the hollers and the smaller counties and things, those people aren't going to listen to somebody out of state. It needs to be somebody that they know, somebody that lives, relatively in the vicinity, within a couple counties, and they're much more liable to listen to somebody. This is coming from somebody who grew up in the head of a holler, literally 30 minutes from about any kind of grocery store. So, yeah.
How many Dollar Generals, though?
It's still 25 minutes away from a Dollar General.
Good God, you are in the middle of nowhere. That is impressive.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. That's not where I live now, but that's where I grew up.
Bria's got actual stores within spitting distance. All right, Kimberly, anything else you want to add on your story?
Just want to add that it's so imperative and important, Aaron, that all of our viewers and listeners make sure to contribute to these campaigns. I know we say all the time that each election is basically, democracy is at stake. But honestly, for our state, democracy is at stake. And if Andy doesn't get back in, I don't know what is going to happen to our Commonwealth. It's not going to be pretty.
Not pretty. Did you say you're giving $100 a month to Andy?
Hmm.
Wow. That's impressive.
All right. There's an all-volunteer political organization that's around and available. If you want to be.
I knew you were going to say something. I knew you were going to say something.
No,
And plus, I've been a host on some fundraisers for different people, like Colonel Pam and Andy and stuff like that.
We love Colonel
Aaron,
Pam.
your house isn't burning down, is it? I just wanted to check on you.
No, we have the most sensitive fire alarm in the universe. And if we're gonna broil something, there's gonna be the smoke alarm is gonna be going off. So there's some broiling happening downstairs, but no, don't worry, nothing's on fire. At least I don't think so. I feel like they would yell at me.
You left the stuff in the oven. Just go ahead and tell the truth. You left stuff in the oven.
I didn't. I did leave the sprinklers on, and I feel guilty about that. So anyway, hey, let's move on. Let's move back to the political stories that we're supposed to be covering right now. So we know that Kimberly's going to be making a big donation to Progress Kentucky. That's in the works. That's exciting. We've got the other big money story that I wanted to cover is the big checks, the big, styrofoam checks that are being sent around. And I'm here for it. Like, our state deserves more investment. The fact that Andy Beshear is being quite proactive about landing the kind of federal resources, matching it with public and private investments, getting those investments into our cities, we need it. Absolutely. The reality is we've got to have high-speed, reliable, affordable broadband all across our Commonwealth if people are going to have a level playing field. So I am excited about the fact that this week he announced $386 million to fund broadband projects across Kentucky. Again, these are public-private investments. There's absolutely a federal role in that with some significant resources coming from the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. About $300 million from that, $196 million from the state fund, and then really some significant dollars from matching funds with these kind of private actors as well. So, it's important because you can't exist on our society today, right? This is like, when you're bringing electricity to rural Kentucky, right? That it's just, you had to have it to be a part of our society. That's where we are right now, especially with so much remote work. If we want folks to be able to live throughout our state and, be an active participant in our economy, we've got to have that reliable, dependable, affordable broadband. So I'm excited about the big checks. I'm excited about, the other federal investments that are happening right now. The Appalachian Regional Commission just wrapped up their meeting. I think they were over they had their regional meeting. Was it in Pikeville? Anyway, Andy is the co-chair along with Gail Manchin. That name might ring a bell. Yes, that is Senator Manchin's wife. Gail Manchin is the co-chair of the Appalachian Regional Commission, which works across the 11 states of Appalachia to help do kind of rural development. So they just announced, I think, $14 million for projects that help people recovering from substance use disorders re-enter the workforce. These are, grants to mostly nonprofit entities to help people who are fighting the substance abuse, which, so much of that, the opioid, the oxycodone, and, just horrible situations out there. And we need to be supporting people in their recovery, helping them, get up on their feet, get back in the workforce. So in Kentucky, about, I think $1.5 million of those Inspire grants are going to be coming to local community groups, folks like Love Must Win, the Southeast Kentucky Community and Technical College, the Thrive Community Coalition. Morehead State University is going to get some money for a project that'll work on getting folks back into the workforce. So a lot of different cool investments that are being made in our region. So, I think that's what government, we should celebrate government that's doing that, that's doing the smart work and important work, intentional work to ensure that our, kind of rural and all communities are able to be a functional part of the economy, just like function, right? I guess that's just a sign that you're functioning. If you're like, you got a job, you're working to help support your family. So I was glad to see all that stuff that's happening. Really important that the federal commitment is being matched by a governor who's excited about it, right? Whereas Ron DeSantis is making his like stupid point, like, I'm not going to take any more federal money because I think our state should suffer. Or, like it just doesn't make any sense because he's clearly running for office. He has zero interest in actually helping Florida, so he's going to like deny federal funding opportunities for a political point, which I don't know that that's going to win you much support. I think that's a kind of the wrong approach to take, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the federal funding kind of bonanza that's happening thanks to the Biden administration. Kimberly, Chris, what do y'all think?
Kim?
Okay. Anything that Andy does, I'm all for it, right? And he is bringing money into the state because he cares about our future. And there are so many individuals that don't have the luxury of having broadband or having broadband that actually works efficiently. So I commend Andy Beshear once again for the phenomenal work that he has done as governor. And also with him, and remember, he was working along with the White House on this. You all remember when people from the White House came to Kentucky and talked to people, different people from all over the state. So, Andy, he's also got a lot of clout in his pocket, so to speak, to get things done for this state. So I'm so happy that everyone will be afforded the same playing field when it comes to broadband and having internet.
Absolutely. Chris, what about you?
Yeah. Now, having better broadband is really exciting. Like referring back to, the county I grew up in, Martin County, like when I go visit my family, some of my family that live further up the holler, like their internet's can be pretty shoddy, like, flicking on and off quite a bit. And so if they can get some of that stuff fixed, and I'm pretty sure that there's some hollers that don't have broadband yet. Probably the one that I grew up in probably doesn't have it, but my family haven't lived specifically up that holler in quite some time. So, but about 10 years ago, it was all you could get was like Starlink satellite, and and it was so bad that I could watch like 1.5 YouTube videos, and all the data would be gone for the whole month. It was pretty ridiculous, but no, this is exciting, and we're as a teacher and knowing that sometimes we'll have snow days or go virtual. Well, we went virtual during the pandemic and stuff. So having that kind of access for the kids. So we can still communicate and get some things done when necessary. That's really good. Now snow days, we don't need to get rid of snow days. Snow days are like a gift from above, Yeah. We'll take those and run. But if we're out for an extended period of time, it's good to still be able to teach a little, get some information across, and communicate with the kids and get stuff done. And we're still able to go in and check on them. So I think this is great.
Yeah, I think those, I think from the pandemic, we absolutely learned, right, that just not having that equal access was just one more thing, right? That you're, communities that are struggling, families that are struggling. You're like, oh, and you don't have internet? You got to go like hang out in the McDonald's parking lot to try to do your homework, which, who's got the bandwidth to take you up there? And, it's just, everyone needs to have it. It's a utility at this point, right? People need to have it. All right. I think we've got another story, right? Our friend Chris Priest has got something to cover.
Yeah. We've got a little bit of a story.
You know what? Did you really just do that?
That's good.
Oh man. I was like, oh my God, what happened? Is it my internet or what?
So perfect. It just brought it all together, Chris. It brought it all together. Nice callback.
So,
oh man, you got us though. You get 10 points for that.
our fearless leader in the Senate, minority leader Mitch McConnell, has been freezing a little bit. There's been a glitch in the matrix, and there's a lot of concern about what's happening to him. Is he having a stroke, or is he having seizures? Like, what's happening? And so Monahan, who's a doctor, said in a statement last week that he had consulted with Mitch, who's now 81, and confirmed with his neurology team and determined that he is medically clear to continue with his schedule as planned. The doctor said that occasional lightheadedness is not uncommon in concussion recovery and can also be expected as a result of dehydration. Because if you remember, some time ago, Mitch fell and had a concussion previous to the freezing episodes. And so our other lovely senator, Rand Paul, Dr. Rand Paul, I say that doctor part lightly, said that he is pretty sure that it's not a result of dehydration, and that he's not going to speculate on other aspects of what Mitch can or cannot do, but he feels like he's capable of continuing to fulfill his schedule and be the leader. But it's so weird when Rand Paul tries to pipe up and talk about medical things, because he literally created his own agency to give himself a license. Like,
all right. So this is one that's got a lot of there's a lot of stories about Senator Rand Paul and his doctors. Like, he is a legitimate medical doctor. He's an eye doctor, right? Ophthalmologist or optometrist, whatever.
Yeah.
The thing was, he created his own medical board so he could get board certified, because it was, I don't know why, because it was a pain. So he created his own medical board, which, that's questionable. But he was, in fact, he's got a legit medical degree from Duke, I think, and he was a legit practicing doctor, eye doctor. But very shady on the whole medical board creation piece. Very weird. But he's got a medical license in Kentucky. We looked it up because we wanted to hold him accountable for the horrible medical advice he was giving people over COVID, right? Which was, ignore mask mandates, which of course have absolutely, masks have absolutely been proven to be effective. But he was all against them, and he's still against them. And of course, his Liberhera twin friend, Congressman Massey, is now threatening lawsuits or laws to stop any mask mandates if they come back. These guys are just so anti-mask. Anyway, I will say this, and I took this a little bit in a direction I didn't intend to. Sorry, Chris. But if I trust him when he says, that doesn't seem like dehydration. I feel like that's a legitimate medical opinion. Who glitches out over dehydration? That just does not seem like that's a laughable medical excuse for sure.
Yeah, it does. And this happening to Mitch, was it twice in 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember what the span of time was, but it does seem pretty concerning, especially considering how major a role that he plays in our government. Like, reminds me of when G.W. Bush was president and the pretzel almost took him out. So like,
right. Yeah, I shouldn't laugh about that. That's horrible. The whole pretzel situation. Yeah, they're just too old. I'm just gonna say it. These guys are just too old. Like, they're just like Senator Feinstein, like in California. Like, there's no way that woman is like up to the challenge of being a senator. It's not normal for you to like freeze up and not be able to speak for 30 seconds. That's not like maybe if you're having a coughing fit, but just like, I don't know what that was, but that is super weird. And the fact that like, oh yeah, sometimes this happens after like traumatic head injuries. You're like, oh, then yeah, let's take a closer look at you and what you're doing. But anyway, I was a little surprised, not terribly shocked, that Rand Paul weighed in with like the counter opinion, because that's kind of what he does. And he's never been afraid of like Mitch, right? And because Rand Paul doesn't really have any grand designs for like building power in the Senate. He's just there as a gadfly. And but yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about our geriatric senators, or senator Kimberly?
Glad you asked. Thank you so much. I think there comes a point in time where you have to say, I need to retire. And it's not always based upon age. However, Nancy Pelosi, she's also stated that she's going to run again for her seat in California. Got Feinstein, as Aaron said. And I just have to be honest with you guys. I'm a little nervous about our president running again. Over what was it, 70 something Democrats in the country are saying that they really don't want Biden to run again. They feel like he's too old. It gets scary, Chris. It gets real scary, because it is true. Like, when they're talking and stuff, you're like, and when our great president is up there talking, you're like, oh, please just make it through. Just, you could do it, make it through, and it shouldn't be that way. And I think it was CBS that asked our great Madam Vice President Kamala Harris, my soror. You all haven't heard me say anything about AKs lately. But she was asked the question, is she taking this seriously? And was she prepared to be president? And she said yes. If it came to that, she would be prepared.
Yeah, I guess the whole Biden thing, it just, yeah, he's old. The other thing is Trump's really old too. Either of them would be like the oldest presidents elected, right? So Biden, of course, would be reelected and old, and so that to me, it's like, well, it's kind of a wash, because both these guys are going to be really old, and
there's also Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's running against Biden in the primary.
That's going to go well.
He's a non-factor. We forget that he's even in the race. I feel. I mean, I am concerned. I am very, very concerned. They did a poll, and if the general election was right now, Trump, with even all of his
91 felony charges.
Yes, and probably some more that haven't come up yet. He's running neck and neck with Biden, so it's very concerning. Very, very.
Yeah, like Biden's probably the only or Trump's probably the only candidate that Biden can beat. I don't know. Like, there's just like so much baggage there. But yeah, it's less than ideal, I think. I mean, it would have been nice to see Biden like step back and have an open primary, and or Kamala, Kamala would have a like head start for sure. But oh well, it is what it is, and I'm definitely not supporting RFK Jr., the anti-vax conspiracy theorist crazy person who has a like horrible track record of, like, you think Trump's a liar. He is, but RFK Jr. is also got a very tenuous relationship with the truth. That's for sure. So I don't know.
His father is probably turning over in his grave.
Yeah, I think a lot of his family has got it's just aghast at what he's up to.
From what I had read and listened to his interviews, it didn't sound like he was an anti-vaxxer. He was just anti some of the additives that the pharmaceutical company was putting in them.
Oh yeah, no, he's fully. I don't know what I've seen and what I've heard. Fully anti-vax, and also some just poorly sourced conspiracy theories. Look, he came to fruition, or came to kind of prominence, beyond the family ties, as like an environmental, kind of champion and attorney at Pace Law School, their environmental center there. And I've met him. He spoke at a press conference that I helped organize around an issue that we were working on, and he got up there and he misstated the issue. Absolutely forcefully. I'm an attorney, and then said it wrong. And I'm like, oh, that's not helping. So like, firsthand experience with him being absolutely wrong, even though he'd been prepped, and even though his group that he was working with was right, he was incapable of actually presenting the issue in a way that was accurate and honest. So that was my alert was up at that point, and that was 20 years ago. And every single thing I've seen since then is that he is not one who has a real concern about the truth and about accuracy. So that's a problem for me.
One thing, Aaron, just really, really quickly, because I know we need to move on. This might be off the record, but have you all seen that show called Painkiller on Netflix?
Yeah,
You have?
I haven't finished it. It's like it's a lot. it's
only
a little
6
hard to watch.
episodes. Oh my God, it's so good. But guess what? If Chris, you need to see it. Our viewers and listeners, make sure you see it. The acting is superb. Matthew Broderick. I mean, it is just amazing. But this is the one thing I want to point out. Our wonderful governor, when he was attorney general, he really fought against these pharmaceutical companies. And he was able to even cross the aisle with the Trump administration to bring millions, tens of millions of dollars to our great state for addicts, for therapy, all these type of things. But Aaron, didn't that guy that was supposed to be the U.S. attorney, didn't he look just like Andy Beshear? He had the part on the side and everything. I said, what is going on?
Yeah, Kentucky's total opioid settlements right now are $842 million, which Dan Cameron is claiming sole responsibility for. Even though all of the lawsuits were brought under Andy Beshear, they were settled under Dan Cameron. So clearly, Dan Cameron deserves the credit. These guys are just shameless. So shameless.
And the thing about it, Andy, he actually was in the courtroom prosecuting all these cases himself. So, Daniel Cameron is like a non-factor. Let's move on to something. He's like a little fly.
Yes, we should. We should move on to something that matters, something that we're excited to talk about. Let's get to Mason. All right, let's go to our campaign corner. Very excited to be joined today with Mason Kalinsky, who is the organizing director of Hood to the Holler. Hood to the Holler, which we are proud to say is a member of the Kentucky Future Project, along with Progress Kentucky. Obviously, Hood to the Holler, if you recall, they were founded by the Senate campaign, I believe, the first Senate campaign, and Charles Booker, and now is an independent organization, which is really cool. So absolutely excited to have you, Mason. How are you doing today? You are muted.
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you did that, because it has to happen at least once a show. And the mute button is a eternal confounding issue for us here at the show. But the most exciting part is that we don't have the reverb issue anymore, so no feedback. So Mason, I don't want to jinx us. So tell us, like, what's the story with Hood to the Holler? Like I said, kind of its origins, but like, what's it up to now? What's its focus now?
Sure. So what we do with Hood to the Holler, we are helping people make the change that they want to see in their communities. I know Chris was mentioning earlier the importance of people hearing about messages and politics from their communities and their community members. So it's not somebody from Frankfurt or Washington coming in and telling you your community should do this. But it's your neighbors, your friends coming together and saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if this were to happen? We really try to focus on 4 things: removing barriers to democratic participation, striving to ensure a more reflective democracy, engaging Kentuckians of all stripes from the Hood to the Holler, and breaking down barriers surrounding the topics of racial justice, generational poverty, and inequality in general.
So yeah, just doing a little, nothing big there. That's ambitious, that's broad, that's awesome, it's audacious. And then what's the work look like right now in terms of, like, how are you engaging to advance that agenda?
Yeah, so right now we're working all across the Commonwealth to talk to voters, talk to people who feel distant from power, feel like their voice doesn't matter, their vote doesn't matter. And we're talking to them and seeing what they care about coming into this election, and empowering them to vote. We're also doing a little bit of work with voter restoration in communities from the Hood to the Holler.
Yeah. So Kimberly, do you have a question for Mason?
Yes, Mason. So good to see you this evening. Hood to the Holler gave me a partial scholarship to attend the Arena Academy, which really was so helpful and insightful in my campaign experience. Will you all be doing something like that in the future, offering partial scholarships or whatnot, so that we can gear up more people to become knowledgeable and experts for campaigns and organizing?
Yeah, that's definitely something that that's a priority for us. I'm so glad you were the recipient of the Hood to the Holler scholarship. I also went to Arena Academy because of the Hood to the Holler scholarship. Yeah, we definitely want to prioritize getting organizers across Kentucky to be more engaged and to learn more what they're doing. There are people in Kentucky who want to make change in their community, but because so often campaigns hire from out of state, they don't really have the opportunity to learn and grow, because there are so many candidates who are qualified from out of state who come in. So we're hoping that's one of the things we're really prioritizing, is hiring people from in the community, and not only just hiring them, but helping them learn how to organize in their community so that they can move forward and keep doing the work even past when they're working with us.
Nice. That's great. I also received a scholarship from Hood to the Holler to attend arena training back before when I was running for U.S. Congress. So I'm curious of, like, where, what counties that you all feel like you've really made really good progress, and where are some counties that you feel like you need to put a little more energy in there?
Yeah, absolutely. And for scholarship-free Aaron, I'd like to encourage you to apply next time we run it.
I absolutely will. Can I list you as a reference? I think that's what happened last time. I didn't apply last time, just to be clear. Thanks, Nate.
So one of the areas we are doing really well. I mean, really, we have an amazing team. We have an amazing team of organizers who were doing the work before we hired them and have continued to honestly exceed all expectations. Our organizer in Lexington has been doing phenomenally. Her name is April, and she has been really recruiting volunteers and hitting the pavement super hard. So if you're in Lexington, your door may be knocked by our team. I think we've also been seeing a lot of growth in Louisville, a lot of partner work in Louisville, as we are partnering with the Just Transitions Coalition as well, to help Kentucky grow into an economy that works for everyone, not just the richest people among us. And we're transitioning there from that work into the work we do with electoral stuff. And then we also are working in a lot of counties in Eastern Kentucky. I'm most excited about the work we've been doing in Pike County in Pikeville. We have some really great volunteers there, and our organizer, Danielle, has been doing really amazing work in Eastern Kentucky as well.
You got to work on your pronunciation of the county. It's Pikeville.
Sorry, I apologize.
That's why I'm not. I feel like if you're from there, you can pull it off that way. If you're not from there, you should just like let it be.
That's the importance of hiring people from inside the community. I am not from the community. However, were you to talk to our organizer from Eastern Kentucky, she would say it correctly.
That's awesome. So, Mason, I know that you guys have an awesome name. I love the Hood to the Holler. It's like just so very clear what your strategy here is. Why is are you guys officially, explicitly endorsing Andy? What's your work look like in terms of going to folks' doors? What are you telling them?
Yeah. So when we go to folks' doors, what we've heard from we're listening to our organizers, we're listening to our community members, we're listening to people at the doors. And what we're hearing from a lot of people at the doors is that they're used to people coming to their doors, knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, I'm here. Will you vote for X candidate? Great. See you in 4 years." And that they're kind of sick of that because they don't see the changes in their community that the candidates promised them. They still feel like they're disenfranchised and they're not connected to the candidates that they vote for. So when we go to the doors, we're talking a lot about voting and community and trying to build connections beyond just this campaign. So we do ask them who they're voting for governor for this election, which is the work we're doing with the Kentucky Futures Project. But we really want to emphasize that building community doesn't just mean I'm going to knock on your door and ask you to vote for this person, and then you'll see me again the next time it's time for you to vote, because people are sick of that. And that's not how you actually make progress in any state, let alone Kentucky.
No, that's for sure. That's not building power, and that's not engaging those folks. So, what does the kind of follow-up look like? If you had the conversation and they're like, you find out kind of what issues they're fired up about, they do intend to vote. Of course, they're rational humans that are going to vote for Andy. And then what's the follow-up look like? Obviously, it's not like let's wait 4 years, or a lot of these places there will be an election next year, so they don't have to wait that long to hear from us. But what's your engagement look like in terms of after the kind of election conversation? in terms of that engagement or power building or helping support non-electoral efforts?
That is an excellent question, and I'm going to answer it two different ways. First, we are also doing a lot of relational organizing. So, like, a lot of times we've seen people like older folks are more likely to vote than younger folks, especially very young folks. So, I mean, freshly 18-year-old college student has no interest in talking to me, has no interest in talking to really any of us. They have more interest in talking to other college students or their families. So getting their families to talk to them. And so it's not, oh, there's this weird person knocking on my door. It's my grandmother wants me to vote for this candidate. And that being a strategy that we're having people do, and then following up with them to check on how those conversations went and giving them a guide for how to do it. And then also, I really want to shout out our organizer in Chris. How do you say it?
Packful.
Who is Danielle has been doing amazing work, making it clear to folks that we're doing community events. Like this Saturday, actually, in State Park in Eastern Kentucky, they are holding a community event where people just come and they eat ice cream and they have pizza, and it's not even about politics. It's just about building community and getting to know your neighbors. And our Louisville organizer, who I forgot to shout earlier, Haven, is doing something very similar with his work in Louisville of showing people that we're not like, we have the advantage of we're not rallying around a candidate or a single person. We're rallying around a community. So when folks come together and get to know each other, hopefully, even if Hood to the Holler were not able to continue organizing for some reason, these connections that we're building would still be there and would still be working to make progressive power in Kentucky.
It's awesome. And just to be super clear, you guys are in fact, you're canvassing from the Hood to the Holler. You're fulfilling that mission. You've got and perhaps places in between.
Yes, we are from the Hood to the Holler. We are in so many counties across Kentucky and a lot of cities, like smaller cities.
Do you have one in Madison County?
We are not in Madison County. Some of our partners who are partners with us in the Kentucky Futures Project have Madison County already. So if somebody wants to volunteer in Madison County and they want to reach out to info@hoodtotheholler.org, I'd be happy to connect them to groups doing work in Madison County.
Shayna is there. Why would we put more people there? She is amazing, and she Kentuckians for the Commonwealth organizer is a badass. And yeah, but how many organizers do you guys have on the ground?
To be clear, I meant volunteers. If you want to work with Shayna, I was going to connect volunteers to Shayna to help her work.
For sure.
We currently have 3 organizers on the ground and are in the midst of hiring numerous paid canvassers.
Oh, that's awesome. That's so great. Yeah. As an all volunteer organization, it just makes me like completely like, oh my gosh, what? We can like have people working from 9 to 5 on doing this work. That's amazing. Probably not 9 to 5, but hopefully humane schedules.
Yeah.
That's my one major takeaway from being a campaign organizer is holy crap, they can run you through the ringer on the political like machine, right? Like, and I'm sure that's not how you guys are organizing. I know that most folks now are a little more enlightened about it, but man, it is a grind to do that job for sure. All right. So any final thoughts you want to share? Any final questions from Kimberly or Chris before we move on?
I have a statement that I like to say to Mason. Could you please share this show tonight on all of your social media platforms so it can get to as many people as possible? Because the more people have knowledge, the more power we will all have.
Yes, both my
Thank
personal
you.
and Hood to the Holler has shared all of this.
Nice.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this awesome work and being out and everywhere in the state, because we need it. We need it in the small towns. We need it in the bigger cities, and the access to organizing and giving people the power and knowing, letting them know their value is so important.
I'd like to go back to what Aaron said about ethical organizing. I agree very strongly with that, and that's something I'm very clear with my team. And I'd like to show other campaigns, because I've been in political work for 10 years, and I'm very familiar with churn and burn and just getting through young kids as fast as possible. In terms of, you graduated college, great, you organize, and then we're going to send you to the next state. I really want people to see the success that Hood to the Holler is having and is going to continue to have, and see that you can do it ethically, that you can, like, we give our organizers breaks. We let people get sick or have their kids get sick or whatever. And that doesn't mean that our campaign is going to fall apart.
Yeah, you don't need to be working 7 days a week necessarily to get this stuff done, you know?
Exactly. And for my thoughts, I want to say to anybody in Kentucky, wherever you are in the Hood to the Holler, the number one thing I hear, I have canvassed from the Hood to the Holler, and the number one thing I hear is people saying, like, oh, there's no way I can make a change. There's no way this area is ever going to change. There's no one here who thinks like me. There's no one here who acts like me. And that's something I hear from everyone, or almost everyone, everywhere I go. So odds are there is someone else in your county, in your city, who has said that to me. And you should find that person and you should talk to them and organize to make change. Because if just a handful of people stand up in these rural areas, in these hollers, for the things that they believe in, that's going to overpower a lot. That's going to make a big change.
That's for sure. That's awesome. That's a great sentiment to leave it with, Mason, for sure. We only don't have power if we think we don't have power, right? Like, we if we think we do, we can create it. We can organize together. We can make a difference. It doesn't take that many folks to really make a pretty significant shift. If you're smart, if you're strategic, if you're doing it with some intentionality and some durability, right? So excellent. Mason, thank you so much for all the work you're doing for Hood to the Holler. Thanks for your commitment to just a better Commonwealth. And yeah, so thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so now I think we're going to close out the show. I think we've got at least a call to action. Hey, Chris, if I do the call to action, can you close out the show?
Sure.
Fantastic. So I think we're losing Kimberly. All right. So really important, as I mentioned, Progress Kentucky, we're a part of that Kentucky Future Project. We've got a pretty aggressive plan to deliver 4 more years of a compassionate Commonwealth. We're all in on reelecting Andy. We want to put Colonel Pam in the AG's office. We want to put Kim Reeder in the auditor's office. We want to put Sarah Enlow out in some field somewhere doing that ag stuff. And so we're doing calling and canvassing every week between now and November 7th. So we got 2 nights a week where we're calling. We're getting together on Zoom and making phone calls. We're getting together Saturday to go knock on doors. So I tell you what, I love canvassing. I love getting out there and talking to people for so many reasons. The most exciting reason recently was that Doug had the cops called on him last Saturday. So Doug Price, your friendly neighborhood, Progress Kentucky's treasurer, and just the nicest man you'll ever meet. There he is. He was, the cops were called on him because he was a suspicious person. Although, honestly, we never really determined who had the cops called on them. The cops talked to him, but he and I were on either side of the street. So, anyway. But yeah, the cops were very nice about it. And obviously, he was not untoward, up to no good. And it was not hauled away. When I got the text, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to have to bail you out? I'm like, no, he just had a nice chat with the cops and then went on his way knocking on doors. Anyway, so it's fun. You should come and do it because we got a lot of doors to knock on. And we'll buy you a coffee. We're not going to pay you because we're an all-volunteer group, but we'll definitely meet up at a coffee shop before we head out, and we'll buy you coffee. How's that? All right. Chris, you wanna close this out?
Sure. Yes. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Make sure to join us next week when we'll be covering the breaking news out of the governor's race and welcome Planned Parenthood. Production of episode 129, wow, was by the amazing Annabelle Nagel. No, sorry, not Annabelle, Nate. Nate Orsham. And thank you, Nate, for the new song and the theme songs. We can find more information and music at natosongs.com. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook or YouTube, audio podcasts and our show notes are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you do listen to the pod, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. More information can be found at coachfiremedia.com. Logo and some graphic content provided by Coach Fire Media.